My husband and his mother left me at home to care for my nonverbal brother-in-law while they went on a luxurious cruise. But the moment the front door closed, my brother-in-law suddenly spoke in a clear voice. "Sarah," he said, "you can't eat the pudding Mom gave you. It's poisoned." My heart felt like it had stopped. I had been living in the middle of a deadly charade. The sound of suitcase wheels rolling across the tile floor echoed through the living room. That morning, our usually quiet house was a flurry of activity. I was rushing around, making sure my husband, Michael, and his mother, Eleanor, had everything properly packed. I meticulously checked off every item, from changes of clothes and emergency medication to Eleanor's flamboyant sunglasses. I wiped the sweat from my brow with the back of my hand. In truth, my heart ached as if sliced by a sharp blade. They were leaving for a week-long vacation. Not just any vacation, but a lavish cruise sailing through the Caribbean, the kind of trip I could only imagine in my dreams. "Sarah, where is my sunscreen? Don't be so slow. The car service will be here any minute." Eleanor's sharp cry came from the master bedroom. Startled, I quickly grabbed the bottle of sunscreen from the vanity. "Yes, Eleanor, I have it right here," I answered, rushing to hand her the bottle. Without a word of thanks, she snatched it from my hand. Her face was a thick mask of makeup, and her loud floral print dress was particularly garish. She looked ecstatic, a stark contrast to my own appearance in faded loungewear. Michael emerged from the room, adjusting the collar of his Hawaiian shirt. He looked handsome and refreshed, smelling of the expensive cologne I had bought him last month with money I'd saved from the grocery budget. He glanced at me before his eyes shifted to the large suitcases, which seemed to mock me. "Honey," I called out quietly, mustering my courage. "Is there really no way for me to go with you? Is it impossible to get another ticket?" Michael let out a long sigh, as if my question was a heavy burden. He approached and put his hands on my shoulders, but the touch felt mechanical and void of warmth. "Sarah, how many times do I have to explain this?" he said, his voice feigning a gentleness that couldn't hide the underlying irritation. "Cruise tickets are incredibly expensive. My year-end bonus was just enough for 2 people. Besides, if you come, who will look after the house? Who will take care of Leo?" My gaze drifted to the corner of the living room, where a young man sat in a wooden wheelchair. It was Michael's younger brother, Leo. His head was bowed, his eyes fixed blankly on the floor. For the past decade, since a tragic family accident, Leo had been considered nonverbal and mentally disabled. Since I married Michael 3 years ago, my primary duty, aside from being a wife, had been to care for him, bathing him, feeding him, and even cleaning up after his bodily functions. But honey, we could put Leo in a professional care facility for a short while, or hire a home care nurse. I tried to negotiate, knowing it was a futile effort. "What did you just say, Sarah?" Eleanor interjected suddenly, her eyes widening in fury. "You dare suggest dumping my son in a home? What kind of wife are you? You should be grateful you have a roof over your head and food to eat, living off of us. Is it so much to ask you to look after your own brother-in-law?" Her words stabbed me like daggers. It was always like this. Before my marriage, I had a respectable career. But Michael asked me to quit, to focus on managing the household and caring for his mother. Now, my sacrifice was being dismissed as me simply being a freeloader. "That's not what I meant, Eleanor. It's just that I'd like to go on vacation with Michael sometimes, too." My voice trailed off, my courage shrinking under her piercing glare. All right, let's not fight. It's bad luck to argue before a trip." Michael stepped in to mediate, but it was clear whose side he was on. "Sarah, you stay home, and Leo needs someone he knows. A stranger would make him uncomfortable." I could only nod, swallowing the bitter pill of disappointment. It settled deep in my stomach, a cold, unspoken ache. A car horn honked from beyond the gate. Their ride had arrived. Michael and Eleanor hurried to pull their suitcases. I carried Eleanor's handbag to the front door for her. Before getting into the car, Eleanor stopped abruptly. She turned to look at me. Strangely, her gaze wasn't cynical this time. A smile played on her lips. It was a very sweet smile, but for some reason, it sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't a genuine smile, but the smile of someone hiding a plan. "Oh, that's right, Sarah," Eleanor said in a syrupy sweet voice, a complete departure from the shriek she'd used moments before. I almost forgot. I made a special dark berry pudding for you. It's in the fridge. I was taken aback. Pudding? Eleanor had made food for me? In all my time here, she had loathed entering the kitchen for my sake. Usually, I was the one waiting on her like a queen. Pudding? I asked, confused. Yes, pudding, Michael chimed in, also beaming. Mom woke up at the crack of dawn to make it. It's an old family recipe. She said she added some precious herbs that warm the body and help with fertility. We've wanted a baby for a long time, haven't we? I guess this is her way of helping us. Eleanor nodded enthusiastically. Her hand gripped my arm, her nails digging in painfully. You understand? You must eat that pudding. Finish it all tonight. Don't leave any leftovers, and don't you dare throw it away. The ingredients were very expensive. This is my token of affection for you before I go. Yes, Eleanor. Thank you so much, I replied, feeling a twinge of guilt for my earlier negative thoughts about her. Maybe she truly wanted to mend our relationship. Maybe she was just eager for me to get pregnant and give her a grandchild. You promise. I'll check the trash when I get back. Eleanor threatened, but this time it was in a tone of awkward jest. I promise, Eleanor. I'll eat it after I finish my chores, I said. They got into the car. Michael gave a brief wave through the window. Then the car was gone, leaving only a faint cloud of dust on the driveway. I stood numbly at the door until the car disappeared around the corner. The large house fell silent again. It was just Leo and me now. I tried to compose myself, taking a deep breath. Well, at least I would have a week of quiet time without Eleanor's nagging. And there was a special pudding waiting for me. Perhaps this was a good start to improving our relationship, I thought. I closed and locked the front gate, then turned back inside. My steps felt heavy as I walked toward the living room. Leo was still in the same position, sitting quietly in his wheelchair, facing the turned-off television. Leo, your brother and mother have left, I said softly, stroking his slightly overgrown hair, even though I knew he wouldn't respond. He remained motionless, his gaze still vacant. I'm hungry. I'll have some of that pudding now and make lunch for you later. I walked to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. There, on the middle shelf, was a large glass bowl filled with a deep crimson pudding. The color was beautiful, a vibrant blood red with a firm, inviting texture. I lifted the bowl. It was cold. Taped to the bottom was a small note in Eleanor's neat handwriting. For my grandchild. Eat every bite. Reading the message warmed my heart. So, behind that tough exterior, she really did care about my future. I carried the bowl to the table, grabbed a large spoon, and sat alone in the spacious dining room. The wall clock showed it was 10 in the morning. The house was so quiet, I could only hear the ticking of the second hand, as if it were counting the moments of my loneliness. I looked at the bowl of pudding before me. It smelled sweet, a mix of dark berries and milk, with a faint, unidentifiable herbal scent. It must be the traditional medicine my mother-in-law mentioned, the one that was good for conception. I was hungry. I had skipped breakfast in the rush to pack their bags. This cold pudding would be a refreshing treat for my dry throat. Here goes nothing, I muttered a final time. I slowly stirred the pudding with my spoon, feeling its smooth texture. The deep red color seemed to beckon me, urging me to taste it. I scooped up the first spoonful. A jiggly red mass quivered at the end of the spoon. I opened my mouth, about to take that first bite. Suddenly, a jarring, scraping sound pierced the silence. It was the sound of a wheelchair. Startled, I looked toward the living room. My heart pounded in my chest. Leo. Leo never moved his wheelchair on his own. He always waited for someone to push him. But the sight before me made me gasp in horror. Leo wasn't sitting in his wheelchair. He was standing. Yes, standing. Leo, my brother-in-law, whom I had known for 3 years to be paralyzed and silent, was now standing tall in the middle of the room, his 2 feet planted firmly on the floor. His usually expressionless face was now looking at me with a sharp, urgent gaze. A cold sweat began to trickle down my back. Was I so tired that I was hallucinating? Leo, my voice trembled as I hesitantly called his name. He didn't answer my call, but he moved. He walked quickly, No, he was half running toward me. His steps were steady, not like someone whose muscles had atrophied from years of paralysis. Before I could process what was happening, Leo was beside the dining table. His hand, which I had always known to be weak, suddenly grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. Don't. That one word, that single word from his mouth. Leo forcefully knocked the spoon from my hand. It flew through the air and clattered onto the tile floor. The lump of red pudding splattered, scattering like fresh bloodstains. I shot up from my chair, stumbling back a few steps until my back hit the wall. My breath came in ragged gasps. I stared at Leo with a mixture of terror and disbelief. My mind couldn't comprehend the situation. Leo stood. Leo moved aggressively. And most unbelievably of all, Leo spoke. LL Leo? My tongue felt thick. You can talk? You can walk? Leo didn't answer right away. He stared blankly at the bowl of pudding on the table, then looked back at me. His breathing was heavy too, as if he had just unleashed years of pent-up courage. His face, which had always seemed like that of a dazed child, was now transformed into the face of a grown man, filled with anger and concern. "Throw that pudding away, Sarah," Leo said. His voice was rough and heavy, like a machine that hadn't been used in a long time, but his enunciation was clear, perfectly clear. I was still frozen, clutching my racing heart. "What are you talking about? Why? Why have you been pretending to be nonverbal all this time? And pretending to be paralyzed?" Leo ignored my questions. He pointed a trembling index finger at the bowl of pudding. "Listen to me, Sarah. Don't eat anything Mother gave you before she left. That's not medicine to help you get pregnant." "Then what is it?" I asked, my eyes beginning to well up with tears of fear and confusion. Leo looked me straight in the eye, his gaze freezing the blood in my veins. "It's poison," he said coldly. In that moment, the world seemed to stop. "Poison? What are you talking about, Leo? Your mother made it herself. She said she cared about me, that she wanted me to get pregnant soon." "Mother doesn't love anyone but money, Sarah," Leo suddenly shouted, an explosion of emotion. He gripped the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Why do you think I pretended to be crazy? Why do you think I pretended to be mute for 5 years? If I could talk, if I seemed normal, I would have been dead at their hands a long time ago." My legs gave way, and I sank back into the chair. A cascade of truths hit me without mercy. Leo, my brother-in-law whom I had cared for like a child, had been hiding this monumental secret, and he had just saved my life. But why? Why would they want to poison me? I'm Michael's wife. I'm their daughter-in-law. Leo pulled a chair up and sat in front of me. He looked at me with deep sympathy. "Because you're no longer useful to their business plan," Leo explained in a calm but chilling voice. "I heard them talking in the living room last night while you were asleep. Michael has huge gambling debts, and his pregnant mistress is pressuring him to marry her." "Mistress," I whispered blankly. My heart shattered into a million pieces. Michael was cheating on me. "Her name is Jessica," Leo continued, "the daughter of a wealthy businessman. Michael needs the deed to this house, which is still in your name, and the land in the countryside from your parents' inheritance to pay off his debts and fund his marriage to Jessica. He's afraid that if he divorces you, you'll sue for a division of assets. So, the only way," Leo gestured toward the now horrifying red pudding, "was to make you die slowly, as if from a natural illness or a miscarriage. That pudding is laced with a high dose of medication and an odorless, liquid rat poison. If you had eaten that, your internal organs would have been damaged within hours, causing severe hemorrhaging. The doctors would have thought it was a stomach ailment or a uterine complication." I covered my mouth with my hand, fighting a sudden wave of nausea. Eleanor's sweet face and Michael's gentle smile from this morning flashed in my mind. It was an act. All of it was a grotesque play designed to end my life. "They went on the trip to create an alibi," Leo added. "When you were found dead later, they would be overseas, clean. No one would suspect a thing." Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. The pain of betrayal was more toxic than any poison. The husband I had loved and served with all my heart had plotted my murder for another woman and for money. The mother-in-law I had thought of as a replacement for my own mother was a demon with an angel's face. Leo reached out and took my cold hand. His touch was warm and real. "Wipe your tears, Sarah," Leo said firmly. His vacant expression was completely gone, replaced by the face of a protector. "We don't have much time. Are you just going to sit here and die helplessly? Or are you going to get revenge?" I lifted my head and looked into Leo's eyes. In them, I saw the same fire of rage that was beginning to burn in my own heart. The sorrow slowly evaporated, replaced by a searing desire for vengeance. I wiped my tears away fiercely. "Help me," I said, my voice hoarse but determined. "Tell me how to bring them down." Leo gave a faint smile. "First, we need proof. We need to take that pudding and get it to a lab." I stared at Leo, still in disbelief. It felt like a nightmare, but the pain in my chest from Michael's betrayal was all too real. Leo, the man I had considered helpless, was now in front of me, laying out a plan like a general commanding a war. "Before we go to the lab, you need to know everything," Leo said, pulling his chair closer. He poured me a glass of water. His movements were so natural, without a trace of the awkward motor skills he had displayed for years. "Why did you have to pretend to be mute and paralyzed, Leo? Wasn't that torture?" I asked softly after taking a sip of water. Leo let out a long sigh. His gaze turned to the past. 5 years ago, my father died suddenly. Everyone said it was a heart attack. But the night before he died, I saw Mother mixing something into his coffee. I was young then and didn't know what it was. But after he died, she immediately took control of all the company assets and drove out all of Dad's relatives. I gasped. "You mean your mother murdered your father?" I had no proof then, but she knew I saw her making that coffee. She became paranoid. A few weeks after the funeral, I had a motorcycle accident. The brakes had failed. I survived, but my legs were badly broken. Leo pointed to his own legs, now standing firmly on the floor. "The doctor said I could make a full recovery with physical therapy, but Mother told everyone that my nerves were severed and I would be paralyzed for life. She even bribed the doctor to forge my medical records." "Oh my God." I groaned in horror. "That's not all, Sarah. She started giving me high doses of heavy sedatives every day. The drugs made me groggy, made it hard to speak, hard to think. I realized she was trying to turn me into a living vegetable, so I couldn't claim my inheritance or expose her secrets. So I decided to stop fighting. I pretended to swallow the pills but secretly threw them away. I pretended to be mute, completely paralyzed, so she would feel safe and stop trying to kill me. I looked at my brother-in-law with a mixture of admiration and sorrow. What a heavy burden he had been carrying all alone, living under the same roof as a murderer, forced to feign helplessness to survive. "I'm so sorry, Leo," I said, taking his hand. "I didn't know. I thought you were really sick. It's not your fault. You were the only person in this hellish house who genuinely cared for me." Leo's eyes softened. "That's why I couldn't stand by when I knew it was your turn." Leo stood up and walked to a decorative cabinet in the living room. He pushed aside a large porcelain doll and fumbled with the underside of the shelf. With a click, a secret panel opened. My jaw dropped. Even though I cleaned this house every day, I never knew there was a hidden compartment there. From the small space, Leo pulled out a small notebook and an old digital recorder. "I recorded everything," Leo said, placing them on the table. "Dates, times, the subjects of their conversations. All of Mother and Michael's crimes are in here. Company tax evasion, bribing public officials, and the plan to get rid of you." With a trembling hand, I opened the notebook. Leo's handwriting was neat and detailed. My eyes landed on the last page, dated last night, May 20th, 11 p.m. Living room. Michael. "Jessica can't wait any longer. She's threatening to go to the police if I don't marry her now. The baby is getting bigger." Mother. "Calm down. Sarah is a fool. She'll believe anything if we say we love her. Give her that special pudding tomorrow. The liquid rat poison I bought on the black market won't be detected when mixed with the dark berries. Just tell her it's an herbal remedy." Michael. "But won't the police be suspicious if she dies suddenly?" Mother. "We'll be on the cruise. A perfect alibi. Sarah has a history of stomach problems, so we'll just say her gastritis worsened and she died of a gastric hemorrhage. Problem solved." Sarah's inheritance falls into your hands as the legal husband. You can pay off your debts and marry Jessica. Reading the transcript, I felt another wave of nausea. This time, it wasn't from fear, but from disgust. Disgust for the man I had loved, and disgust for myself for having been so blind. "They're monsters," I snarled. The tears had already dried. Now, only the fire of vengeance burned in my chest. "Do you believe me now?" Leo asked. I nodded firmly. "What do we do now?" "We need irrefutable physical evidence. My notebook is just supplementary. We need to prove medically that the pudding is poisonous." Leo pointed to the bowl of red pudding. "Do you have any friends who work in a lab or a hospital?" I thought for a moment. "Emily. My high school friend. She works as a chemical analyst at a private lab downtown." "Good. Call her right now, but don't use your phone. Michael might have it bugged. Use mine." Leo pulled an old cell phone from the pocket of his loose-fitting pants. I had no idea where he had been hiding it all this time. An hour later, wearing a large hoodie and sunglasses to conceal our identities, Leo and I arrived at the lab where Emily worked. Luckily, she was on duty. Her face turned pale as I explained everything, and it turned even whiter when Leo started speaking normally. "Are you serious?" Emily asked, half in disbelief, as she took the pudding sample we had brought in a glass jar. "Please check it as fast as you can, Emily. Our lives depend on it," I pleaded. "Wait here. I'll use a rapid basic toxicology screening kit first. A detailed component analysis will take about a day, but the rapid test can detect common poisons within 30 minutes. 30 minutes felt like 30 years. Leo and I sat in the cold waiting room. He held my hand the entire time, giving me strength. Finally, the lab door opened. A tense-faced Emily emerged. She was holding a single sheet of a preliminary printout. "Sarah." Emily's voice trembled. She looked at me with horrified eyes. You really didn't eat any of this, did you? Not even a little?" I shook my head. "No, I didn't." "Why, Emily? This is insane." Emily pointed to the numbers on the paper. "This pudding contains a lethal dose of arsenic trioxide, mixed with a high dose of an anticoagulant, a blood thinner. If you had eaten this, the arsenic would have corroded your stomach lining, and the blood thinner would have caused massive, unstoppable internal bleeding. You would have died in excruciating pain within a few hours." I covered my mouth to stifle a scream. My whole body was shaking violently. Arsenic, the classic poison favored by murderers, and a blood thinner. Now I understood why they had asked about my history of stomach problems. They wanted to make my death look like a common gastric hemorrhage. How evil and premeditated this all was. "They really tried to kill me," I whispered. Fresh tears flowed, but this time they were tears of gratitude. God had protected me through Leo. "Keep this result, Emily. Please prepare an official report we can use as legal evidence," Leo said firmly. "And keep the remaining pudding sample somewhere safe as evidence." Emily nodded quickly. "Of course. I'll store it in the hazardous materials sample vault. You two need to be extremely careful. This is attempted, premeditated murder." After thanking Emily, we returned to my old car, a keepsake from my father that I rarely used because Michael had always forbidden me from driving. "Where to now?" I asked, starting the engine. My hands on the steering wheel were still trembling. "Home. We need to find those insurance papers," Leo said. "In my notebook, I heard him mention a new life insurance policy he took out in your name without your knowledge." As soon as we got home, we headed to Michael's study. The room was always locked, a forbidden space for me, but a locked door was no problem for Leo. He took out a small set of wires from his pocket, and within seconds, with a soft click, the door opened. During his time pretending, Leo had secretly learned many things through the internet. We searched the room. The desk drawers, the bookshelves, everything. "Found it," Leo exclaimed from behind a large painting on the wall. There was a wall safe. For the password, Leo entered the birthday of Michael's mistress, Jessica. The safe opened. Inside were stacks of cash, my gold jewelry that I thought had been lost in a burglary long ago. It turned out Michael had stolen it, and a thick blue folder. I opened the folder. The title read, "Premium Life Insurance Policy." The insured's name was listed as Sarah Miller. The sole beneficiary was Michael Miller. The death benefit was $5 million, with an additional clause stating the payout would double in case of death by accident or acute illness. The policy had been created just a month ago, and in the insured's signature line was my name, in a very convincing forgery. But I knew I had never signed such a document. $5 million, I gasped. So that's what my life was worth to my husband. Enough to pay off his gambling debts and live lavishly with his new wife, Leo added cynically. He took pictures of all the documents with his phone. This is the perfect motive. The police will love this. Just then, my phone vibrated in my pocket. The screen lit up with the name, My Loving Husband. My heart skipped a beat. Answer it, Sarah, Leo whispered, his face growing serious. It's time to start our act. You have to play along. Make them believe their plan is working. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my frantic heart. I pressed the green call button and turned on the speakerphone. Hello, Michael. I made my voice sound slightly hoarse and weak. From the other end, I could hear the sound of waves and relaxing music, followed by Michael's cheerful voice. Overly cheerful. Hello, Sarah. How's everything at home? I just got to the port. The signal isn't great. Is everything okay? I glanced at Leo. He gave me a thumbs up, signaling me to continue. Yes, Michael. I'm fine, I replied softly. It's just that my stomach has been feeling a little upset for a while now. There was a brief silence on the other end, after which Michael's voice, though feigning concern, had an added layer of eagerness. Upset stomach? Why? Have you eaten? Oh, by the way, did you eat the pudding Mom made? It would be a waste if it melted. You should eat it while it's fresh. The question about the pudding came too quickly. He didn't ask if I had eaten a meal, but went straight for the poison. I closed my eyes, imagining Michael's cunning smile on the other side. Yes, Michael, I just finished the whole bowl. I lied. It was delicious. But I don't know why my stomach is cramping so much now. It hurts. I added a painful groan at the end of the sentence. That's great. I mean, it's probably just a healing crisis, honey. Michael's voice was slightly flustered, but mixed with a sigh of relief. Mom said that kind of reaction is normal. It's a process of cleansing your uterus. Just get some rest. Lie down. Don't move around. It will make you tired. In the background, I could faintly hear Eleanor's voice. It was quiet, but to my now hypersensitive ears, it was clear enough. How did it go, Michael? She ate it. Good. It'll all be over soon. We can have a celebratory toast tonight. My blood boiled. Good. It'll all be over soon. It hurts so much. I groaned again, this time with real tears of rage streaming down my face, making my performance even more convincing. I think I need to call a doctor. No! Michael shouted in alarm. I mean, honey, don't be a baby. It's just an herbal reaction. If you go to the hospital, they'll just give you chemical drugs, and that will negate the pudding's effects. Just sleep, okay? I have to go check in. I'll call you back later when I have a better signal. Bye, honey. The call was disconnected unilaterally. I threw the phone onto the sofa. My entire body trembled with soaring rage. He told me not to go to the hospital, I said in a cold voice. He wants me to be left here to die alone in agony. Leo picked up my phone and pressed the stop button on the recording app he had started before I answered the call. We got them, Leo said with a wry smile. The voice recording, the lab results, the forged insurance papers, and my notebook. This evidence is more than enough to make them rot in prison for the rest of their lives. Leo looked at me sharply. Now it's time for the next step, Sarah. Let's make them come back sooner. It's time to spring the trap on these rats. The dead air of the disconnected call left an eerie silence in Michael's study. I was still clutching my phone, my hands trembling not from fear anymore, but from uncontrollable rage. Eleanor's quiet laugh and Michael's relieved voice, thinking I was dying, replayed in my ears, turning even the last embers of my love for him to ash. Sarah, save that recording file. Leo's command broke the silence. Upload it to the cloud, send it to my email, and copy it onto a USB drive. He was already back in high alert mode, his eyes scanning the room to ensure we left no trace. With fingers that still felt stiff, I secured the digital evidence. Their voices were the first nails in the coffin of their freedom. Now, we need to hurry, Leo said, gesturing to the still-open wall safe. "Michael and his mother are celebrating on that cruise, but they were sloppy. They left the heart of their plan right here." I approached the safe again. Inside, besides the cash and the forged insurance policy, were several stacks of property deeds. I took them out one by one. The deed to this house, the deed to my parents' inherited land in the countryside, and several certificates of deposit, all part of the inheritance from my deceased parents that I brought into this marriage. Michael had always told me these documents were lost during our move 2 years ago. It turned out he had stolen them, hiding them here, waiting for the right time to change the ownership. "That son of a bitch," I muttered the curse under my breath. It was a harsh word I had never uttered in my life, but it came out naturally. "Take it all, Sarah. Leave nothing behind," Leo instructed. He himself was busy taking out a red velvet jewelry box from the corner of the safe. When he opened it, it revealed the diamond and gold jewelry set that was my mother's heirloom, the one they claimed had been stolen during a break-in a year ago. "This is yours." Michael was probably planning to sell it or give it to that woman. We cleaned out the safe's contents. We even took the stacks of cash, likely Michael's illicit funds from corruption or gambling, as evidence. "We have to get this out of the house, right now," I said firmly. This house no longer felt safe. Every corner felt like the eyes of a spy watching us. "Let's go to the bank," Leo replied. "Your old personal safety deposit box is still active, right?" I nodded. Before my marriage, I was an independent career woman. I had a safety deposit box at a major downtown bank, and I had always hidden the key inside an old teddy bear, a place Michael, who considered the bear junk, would never know about. We hurried out. Before leaving, Leo cleverly repositioned the painting covering the safe and, with his skilled lockpicking, relocked Michael's study door as if no one had ever entered. The drive to the bank was tense. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, paranoid that someone was following us, even though Michael and his mother were hundreds of miles away on the ocean. Leo sat beside me, quiet but vigilant. At the bank, the customer service representative gave Leo a brief, curious look. They knew me, but they had never seen Leo in a normal state. "Miss Miller, how can I help you?" "And this is?" the employee asked politely but probingly. "This is my brother, Leo," I replied curtly, without further explanation. "We're here to access my safety deposit box, and I'd like to register Leo as a co-agent for access to this box." Leo smiled politely and greeted the employee in a clear voice. "Hello. It's a pleasure to meet you." The employee's eyes widened for a second. She had probably heard the neighborhood gossip about me caring for a nonverbal, disabled brother-in-law. But, professionally, she processed our request immediately. Inside the cold, steel-walled vault, I placed all the deeds, the jewelry, and the cash, the evidence of their crimes, into my long metal box. The moment that box was locked again, and the steel cabinet slid back into its slot, I felt a 1,000-ton weight lift from my shoulders. My parents' legacy was now safe. "Michael will never get his hands on a single penny," I whispered, stroking the cold steel door. "It's not just about the assets, Sarah," Leo reminded me. "It's about your life, which is now in our hands. The next step is to make sure they can never harm you again." We left the bank with lighter hearts, but our mission was far from over. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the city streets. "Sarah, we need a lawyer," Leo said as we got back into the car. "A lawyer who can't be bought by his money." "Mr. Henderson." The name came to me instantly. He was a dear friend of my late father, an honest and resolute senior attorney. Michael had despised him and forbade me from contacting him after our marriage. Now I knew why. Michael was afraid Mr. Henderson's sharp intuition would see through his ugly facade. "Call him. Tell him it's an emergency," Leo said. I picked up Leo's phone. We had agreed not to make any external calls from my phone to avoid being tracked. I found the number for Mr. Henderson's law firm, which I still knew by heart. The call connected. "Yes, Henderson and Associates," a secretary's voice answered. "Hello, may I speak with Mr. Henderson?" "It's Sarah. Sarah Miller, the late Mr. Davis's daughter." There was a brief pause, and then a deep, authoritative voice I had missed dearly came on the line. "Sarah, my dear girl, it's been too long. How are you? Does your husband know you're calling? Won't he be upset?" Hearing that fatherly voice, I felt tears welling up. "Mr. Henderson, I need your help. I'm in danger. Michael and his mother tried to kill me." I heard the squeak of a chair on the other end of the line, a sign that Mr. Henderson had shot up in surprise. "What? Where are you now? Are you safe?" "I'm safe. I'm with Leo. And we have proof, Mr. Henderson. The poison, a recording, forged documents. I need your help to put them in jail. Come to my office right now. I'll contact a friend of mine on the police force. Don't stop anywhere. Come straight here." I hung up and looked at Leo. His nod gave me courage. My father's old car cut through the traffic, carrying us to the new battlefield of our counterattack. I was no longer the submissive, naive wife. The old Sarah had died yesterday along with the poisoned pudding. All that was left was a woman ready to demand justice. The conference room at Mr. Henderson's office was cool from the central air conditioning, but the atmosphere inside was hot with tension. Spread across the long mahogany table was all the evidence we had collected. The jar with the remaining red pudding, the preliminary lab results from Emily, Leo's small notebook, the voice recording on the phone, and photos of the forged insurance documents. Mr. Henderson sat at the head of the table, his aged face flushed with suppressed rage. Beside him sat a sturdy police officer with a detective's badge on his shoulder. Detective Miller, a close acquaintance of Mr. Henderson from the Major Crimes Division. They had just finished listening to the recording of the phone call I had with Michael. Even after the recording stopped, Eleanor's cruel laughter seemed to echo in the room. "The shameless bastards," Mr. Henderson grumbled, his hand clenching into a fist on the table. "I suspected something was off from the beginning of your marriage, that Michael was no good, but I never imagined he was this evil. And that mother of his, what kind of woman tries to poison her own daughter-in-law for money?" Detective Miller looked back and forth between me and Leo. His gaze was sharp but filled with sympathy. "Miss Miller, this evidence is very strong. Attempted murder with a financial motive. Combined with the forgery of insurance documents, this is a multi-count felony. If the poison is proven to be lethal, they could face life in prison, or even the death penalty." The detective then looked at Leo. "And Mr. Miller, your testimony will be the key. Forgive me, but according to our records, you are registered as nonverbal and mentally disabled." "That was how I survived, Detective," Leo cut in calmly. His deep, intelligent voice slightly surprised Detective Miller, even though Mr. Henderson had briefed him beforehand. "Indeed," the detective replied. "I am of sound mind and ready to undergo a psychological evaluation to prove my testimony is valid. I have been a direct witness to their schemes with my own eyes and ears for years." Mr. Henderson proudly patted Leo's shoulder. "You're a sharp young man. Your father would have been proud to have a strong daughter-in-law like Sarah and a clever son like you." "So, what's our plan now, Detective?" I asked. I wanted to see them pay as soon as possible. "They're still at sea. Should we arrest them when they dock next week?" Detective Miller shook his head. "That's too long, Miss Miller. There's a risk they might suspect their plan failed and destroy other evidence or try to flee. And if you go radio silent after that last call, they'll get suspicious. We need to lure them into our trap right now and make them come back." "Lure them?" I asked. "We give them the scenario they're hoping for," Leo said suddenly, his eyes shining with intelligence. "They're waiting for news of your death. Let's give it to them." Mr. Henderson frowned. "What do you mean?" Leo leaned forward. "Not news of her death directly. That would make them happy, but they would take their time. Give them news that she's in critical condition, that a neighbor found her unconscious, and she's now in the ICU, fighting for her life. The insurance documents will have a clause that the claim must be made immediately, and that the husband, Michael Miller, must be present to sign off on medical decisions or administrative paperwork for a death certificate." Detective Miller continued, catching on to Leo's line of thought. "If they hear that you're in critical condition, they'll panic torn between the joy of imminent money and the fear that you might wake up and testify. They'll rush back to ensure you're silenced for good and to secure the assets before any other family members can intervene." "Who makes the call?" I asked. "Not you. You're supposed to be in a coma," Leo said. He turned to Mr. Henderson. "Mr. Henderson, Do you have a female employee with a frantic, convincing voice? We can have her call Michael, pretending to be a hospital nurse or the neighbor who found Sarah." Mr. Henderson smiled slyly. "My secretary is an excellent actress. I'll have her ready immediately." 10 minutes later, the scenario was put into action. The secretary, instructed by Detective Miller, used our home phone number, technically rerouted to enhance credibility, to call Michael. The speakerphone was on. Everyone in the conference room held their breath. "Hello? Who is this?" "I'm on vacation. Don't bother me." Michael's voice came through, muffled by the sound of a sea breeze. "Hello, Mr. Miller?" "Sir, this is your next-door neighbor." The secretary's voice was filled with extreme urgency. She was panting. "Sir, something terrible has happened. It's your wife, Sarah." There was a brief silence on the other end. The sound of the wind seemed to recede, a sign that Michael was moving somewhere quieter. "What happened to Sarah?" "Speak clearly." His tone had changed, laced with a feigned urgency. "I heard glass breaking earlier, so I came to check, and I found Mrs. Miller collapsed on the kitchen floor, sir. She was foaming at the mouth, and there was red vomit everywhere. We rushed her to Central Hospital, and the doctors say her condition is very critical. They said the bleeding is too severe." "What?" Eleanor's sharp voice cut in, as if she were right next to Michael's phone. "She's still alive?" The question would be bizarre for a normal person, but perfectly logical for a murderer disappointed that their victim wasn't dead yet. The secretary, prepped for this, answered cleverly, "She's barely hanging on, ma'am. The doctors say they need a family member's consent for emergency surgery. Otherwise, Mrs. Miller won't make it through the night. You two need to come back immediately. The police have started asking why there was so much blood." The word police was the final trigger. "We're coming back right now," Michael shouted in a panic. "Don't let her talk. Don't let them operate on her without my consent. I'm her legal husband. I have the final say. Keep the police at bay. Tell them it's just a common stomach ailment. I'll find a helicopter or a speedboat to get to the mainland right now." The call ended. Detective Miller smiled with satisfaction. "We've got them. They're scared. They're afraid you'll wake up and give a statement to the police there. They'll come back as fast as lightning to either silence you or prevent the surgery that could save your life." "How long will that take?" Mr. Henderson asked. "Assuming their position is somewhere in the Caribbean and they charter a private jet like a panicking man would, they could be home by tomorrow afternoon or the morning after." Detective Miller estimated. "Good," I said coldly. I stood up and straightened my clothes. "That gives me time to prepare a fitting welcome at home. Miss Miller, it would be better if you weren't at the house. Let my team handle the takedown," Detective Miller suggested. "No, Detective." I refused, gently but firmly. "I want to see their faces when they realize I'm still alive. I want to see my mother-in-law's face when she realizes her loving pudding failed to kill me. I will be waiting in the living room, sitting on the very sofa where they used to command me from." Leo stood beside me. "I'll be there with her. We will wait for them together." Mr. Henderson looked at us both with a mixture of pride and concern, but finally he nodded. "All right, but Detective Miller's team will be staked out around the entire house. The moment they enter and either confess or try to harm you, the police will move in." That night, Leo and I returned to the large, quiet house. But this time, the house was no longer a prison. It was the stage for the final act. I cleaned up the broken glass and the remaining pudding from the floor, scrubbing until it shined. "Get a good night's sleep, Sarah," Leo said as we finished tidying the living room. "You'll need a lot of energy to play the leading role tomorrow." I went to my room and locked the door. For the first time in 3 years, I fell asleep without worrying about being scolded for oversleeping. I slept peacefully, waiting for my loving husband and mother-in-law to return to be escorted to prison. The hands on the living room wall clock seemed to move in slow motion. Tick, tock. The sound was usually drowned out by Eleanor's shouting or the blare of the television Michael always had on too loud. But this afternoon, the large house was enveloped in a near-sacred silence. It was the quiet of a calm sea surface just before a hurricane makes landfall. I was sitting in the single armchair, the one upholstered in dark brown faux leather. This was Eleanor's throne. In the 3 years since I married Michael, I had never once been allowed to sit here. That sofa is expensive, Sarah. Your cheap market clothes might scratch the leather or leave your sweat smell on it, my mother-in-law had once said. Now, I sat here with my back straight, legs crossed elegantly, holding one of the finest porcelain teacups that had, until now, only been for display in the glass cabinet. A faint steam still rose from the jasmine tea in the cup. The aroma was calming, a stark contrast to my rapidly beating heart. It wasn't beating out of fear. That fear had died yesterday, along with the poisoned pudding that had splattered on the floor. My heart was pounding with adrenaline. The adrenaline of a hunter waiting for the prey to walk into the trap. Sarah, drink your tea. Your hands are cold. Leo's soft voice came from behind the armchair. I turned my head slightly. Leo was standing at the doorway connecting the living room to the inner part of the house. He was not in his wheelchair. He was standing tall, wearing a black long-sleeved shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked capable, a world away from the paralyzed brother-in-law I used to feed porridge to every morning. His face no longer held that vacant, slightly open-mouthed expression. There was only the sharp gaze of a hawk, the gaze of an intelligent man who had been forced to extinguish his own flame for years. "I'm fine, Leo," I replied with a faint smile. "I just can't wait to see their faces. They've just entered the driveway." The voice of Detective Miller crackled through the tiny earpiece in my ear. Detective Miller and his 4 team members were not visible in the living room. They were perfectly hidden. 2 were in the kitchen, 1 behind the thick curtains in the dining room, and another, along with Detective Miller, was watching the situation from a black van parked 2 houses down, connected to us via communication gear. My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, was sitting in a slightly dim corner of the room, pretending to read a business magazine, but his eyes were vigilantly fixed on the front door. "Remember the plan, Miss Miller. Let them speak first. Let them feel like they've won. We need as much of a verbal confession as we can get before we move in." Detective Miller's instruction came again. "Yes, Detective," I whispered. I could hear the sound of a car engine approaching, a sound I knew all too well. It wasn't our family car, it was an airport shuttle van. They had really come back with all their luggage, as if my death was just a small interlude in their luxurious vacation itinerary. The car stopped right in front of the gate with a slight screech of tires. My heart stopped for a moment, then resumed pumping blood with the rhythm of war. I slowly placed the teacup on the table. The clink of porcelain sounded unusually loud to my ears. "They're here," Leo whispered. He slowly backed away, disappearing into the shadows of the hallway leading to the bedrooms, preparing for his dramatic entrance later. The sound of car doors slamming shut was followed by hurried footsteps on the pavement. Not the leisurely steps of people just back from vacation, but the frantic steps of people racing against time. "Driver, just leave the suitcases at the door. I'll deal with them later. I need to check on my wife's condition first." Michael's voice rang out from outside. The performance had begun. Even for the driver, he was playing the part of the worried husband. "Mother, hurry up!" Michael shouted again, his voice lower this time, and filled with irritation, no longer acting. "Hold on, Michael." My heel got stuck. "And what's the rush? If she's already dead, it's not like the body is going anywhere." Eleanor's grumpy reply came through. Hearing those words, my blood boiled. If she's already dead, it's not like the body is going anywhere. How insignificant was my life in the eyes of that old woman. To them, I was just a piece of meat blocking their path to money. The key turned roughly in the front door lock. With a click, the door swung open. A gust of evening wind blew in, carrying the scent of expensive perfume mixed with sweat and fear. Michael rushed in first. He was a mess. His palm tree-patterned beach shirt was wrinkled, with a sauce stain on the chest, probably from a hasty meal on the plane. His face was oily, his hair was matted, and his eyes darted frantically around the room. "Sarah! Sarah!" he called out. But his eyes weren't looking for a person. His eyes were fixed on the side table where he usually kept important documents. He didn't see me, as the armchair I was in had its back to the entrance. Eleanor followed, panting as she dragged her knockoff Louis Vuitton suitcase. Her face, caked with thick powder, was streaked with sweat. "Where is she? They said she was critical." "Don't tell me she's already gone?" Eleanor asked bluntly. She dropped her handbag on the floor. "For goodness sake, Michael. If she dies in the hospital, the paperwork will be a nightmare. We should have just let her die here, looking like she fell asleep." "Be quiet, Mother," Michael snapped. He fumbled in his pants pocket and pulled out his phone. "I need to call the insurance company. If she died before midnight, it counts as a business day, and the payout might come faster." I listened to all of this with an indescribable feeling. There was a heart-wrenching pain after all. I had loved this man, but that pain was now buried under a mountain of disgust. They hadn't even checked if I was still breathing, but they were already calculating the insurance money. I decided to end their delusion. "Too bad for you, Michael. The insurance company is probably closed by now." My voice cut through the air, calm but sharp. I turned slightly in my seat so I could see them directly. The effect was immediate. Michael, who had been about to tap his phone screen, froze on the spot. The phone slipped from his grasp and fell to the floor with a dull thud. He didn't seem to notice. His eyes were wide as saucers, and his mouth hung open like a fish gasping for air. Eleanor let out a choked scream, her hand reflexively clutching her chest. Her eyes stared at me in terror. "Sarah?" Michael's voice was strangled. He took a step back, his legs trembling. You're... I smiled, mimicking the same smile Eleanor had given me yesterday when she handed me the poisoned pudding. "What is it, Michael? Are you surprised? Disappointed? Or perhaps afraid? You're still alive?" Eleanor finally found her voice, but her tone was a mixture of disbelief and profound disappointment. "The neighbor said you were coughing up blood, that you were critical." I slowly took a sip of my tea, savoring their horror. "Oh, that must have been just a little indigestion, Eleanor. The neighbor tends to exaggerate." "Why?" "Are you very upset that your daughter-in-law is alive and well? Would you have preferred I was in the morgue?" Michael tried to collect himself. His cunning mind began to search for an excuse. He forced a smile onto his pale face. He came toward me, his hand outstretched and trembling, as if to embrace me. "Honey, oh, thank God, I'm so relieved," he exclaimed in the most dramatic voice he could manage. I thought my heart was going to stop when I heard the news. I bought the most expensive flight ticket to come back right away. The vacation didn't matter. The most important thing is that my wife is safe. I let him get within a few feet of me. Then I raised my hand in a gesture to stop. "That's far enough, Michael. Don't come any closer. The stench of a corpse is too strong," I said coldly. Michael's steps halted. His false smile vanished instantly. "Sarah, what are you talking about? What rotting smell? I showered this morning." "It's the stench of your lies that's rotting." I cut him off. I slowly stood up. My crimson dress flowed beautifully. I felt taller, more powerful. "You said you panicked out of love, but the first thing you looked for when you walked in the door wasn't me, but the insurance company's phone number. You said you were thankful I was safe, but your mother just expressed her disappointment that dying in the hospital would complicate the paperwork." Eleanor's face turned beet red with anger and shame. "You! Watch your mouth, you ungrateful wench! We rushed back for you, and you greet us with these strange accusations? You little tramp from the countryside. I should have known this would happen. I should have just stayed on the cruise and partied." "A party to celebrate my death, you mean?" I shot back. Eleanor fell silent, her lips trembling. "What are you talking about? Who said anything about killing you?" "The pudding, Eleanor," I said softly, as if discussing a recipe. "The special dark berry pudding made from a secret family recipe. The one you said was a token of your affection, the one you insisted I finish that very night." Michael's eyes darted nervously. He looked at his mother, then back at me. "Sarah, did you eat that pudding?" "Of course not, Michael," I replied leisurely. "If I had, I would be a corpse with ruptured organs right now, and the two of you would be toasting with wine to celebrate your $5 million insurance payout." At the mention of $5 million, Michael's knees buckled. He stumbled back against a decorative cabinet. "Sarah, you're talking nonsense. What $5 million? Who told you that?" "Don't play dumb, Michael," I shouted. My voice echoed through the room, making them both flinch. I was no longer the submissive Sarah. I was the betrayed Sarah. I picked up the blue folder Mr. Henderson had prepared on the table. I threw it at Michael. The papers scattered, revealing copies of the forged insurance policy, the deeds to the land he had stolen, and the transcript of their conversation. "Read it," I commanded. "It's the life insurance policy in my name that you created by forging my signature. The sole beneficiary, Michael Miller, with an added clause for death by acute illness. Did you think I was an idiot? Did you think I would forever be the stupid wife who just washes your underwear and cooks your meals?" With violently shaking hands, Michael picked up a piece of paper. His face was now beyond pale. It was ashen, like a corpse. This is, he stammered, unable to finish his sentence. Seeing the situation turning against them, Eleanor tried to take control with her usual weapon, verbal abuse. She strode toward me, pointing a finger in my face. "You insolent brat! How dare you go through your husband's things? That's an invasion of privacy, you thief! You must have conspired with an outsider. Who taught you to be so rebellious? You're having an affair, aren't you?" Eleanor's shouting was deafening. She was trying to flip the script, a classic manipulator's tactic, blame the victim to cover the perpetrator's guilt. "An affair?" I let out a bitter laugh. "The one having an affair is your son. Jessica, was it? The pregnant daughter of a wealthy businessman who is threatening to go to the police if Michael doesn't marry her soon. That's why you two tried to kill me, isn't it?" "Shut that mouth!" Eleanor shrieked hysterically. She raised her hand high, about to slap me hard across the face. "I'll make sure you can never run that pretty mouth of yours again." I didn't flinch. I didn't back away. I bravely met her gaze, ready to take the slap as additional evidence of assault. But the slap never landed. From the shadows of the hallway, a strong hand shot out and caught Eleanor's wrist in midair. The grip was so powerful that Eleanor cried out in pain. "Ow! Who is it?" Eleanor struggled, her eyes not yet able to see who it was due to their position slightly to her side. "Don't you ever touch my sister-in-law with those filthy hands again, Mother." A deep voice resonated through the room, a voice unfamiliar to Eleanor and Michael's ears, but one that struck a chord of terror in their guilty souls. Eleanor turned her head, Michael turned his head, and there stood Leo, my nonverbal brother-in-law, my paralyzed brother-in-law, my idiot brother-in-law. He stood like an iron fortress, gripping his mother's hand, his eyes burning with the fire of judgment. Time seemed to freeze. The moment stretched on for an eternity. Even the dust motes dancing in the afternoon sunlight seemed to halt their movement. The scene in the living room was a grotesque, surreal tableau for Michael and Eleanor. Leo, the object of their ridicule, the boy they considered less valuable than a broken piece of furniture in the storage room, now stood towering before them. He was no longer the drooling, hunched figure in a wheelchair. He was Leo, exuding an aura of formidable authority. "El Leo?" Eleanor's voice was a choked squeak, like a mouse being crushed under a heel. Her eyes, wide with shock, darted from Leo's legs, planted firmly on the marble floor, to the face of her son, who was staring back at her with unadulterated loathing. You're standing." Leo roughly shoved his mother's hand away. Eleanor staggered backward. The heel of her high-heeled shoe snapped, and she collapsed onto the floor in a heap of humiliation. "Why, Mother? Are you surprised?" Leo asked, his voice dangerously low. He took a step forward, and nearby, Michael cowered, pressing himself against the wall. "Are you surprised that the son you condemned to a lifetime of paralysis can walk? Are you surprised that the son you tried to turn into an idiot with high doses of sedatives still has a brain?" "This is impossible," Michael muttered, his face slick with cold sweat. He shook his head repeatedly, trying to deny the reality before him. "You're mute. The doctor said your vocal cords were damaged. There's no way you can talk." "The doctor you and Mother paid off, you mean?" Leo cut in sharply. He turned his head toward his brother, a cynical smile playing on his lips. $50,000. That's what Mother paid that doctor to forge my medical records after the motorcycle accident. I heard the deal being made, Michael. I heard everything. Lies. He's lying." Eleanor shrieked from the floor, her coiffed hair now in disarray, making her look like a witch whose spell had backfired. "He's crazy. He's a lunatic. Don't listen to him, Michael. This is all that Witch Sarah's doing." "A lunatic?" Leo laughed, a dry, hollow sound devoid of any humor. "The lunatics are you two. You, Mother, Killed father 5 years ago by swapping his kidney medication with a high dose of asthma medication. I saw you, Mother. That night, at 11 p.m., in the kitchen, I saw you grinding up those pills and putting them into Father's medicine capsules. Eleanor's face drained of all color, turning from red to a deathly white. Her darkest secret, the one she thought she had buried with her husband's body, was now being exposed by the son she thought was a fool. You shut your mouth!" Eleanor's voice grew weak, trembling violently. "And you, Michael." Leo turned his gaze to his brother. "Last Tuesday night, at 10 p.m., in your study, you were on the phone with Jessica. Just be patient, baby. The mute and the cripple at home won't be a problem. Once Sarah is dead, I'll sell this house, dump Leo in the cheapest nursing home, and we'll get married in Bali. Isn't that exactly what you said?" Michael collapsed. His legs had literally given out from under him. He fell to his knees on the floor, staring at Leo with eyes full of terror. Leo's detailed memory, the dates, the times, the verbatim quotes, shattered every denial he was trying to build. You heard all of it?" Michael whispered. "I heard everything. And I recorded everything. Behind this foolish face, I have been chronicling all your sins." Leo tapped his temple. "You thought I was quiet because I was stupid. I was quiet because I was waiting for the right time to destroy you, just as you destroyed my life and Sarah's. I stepped forward and stood beside Leo. We stood side by side, two victims turned judges. Let's stop the storytelling," I said coldly. I nodded toward the dark corner of the room. "You can come in now, Mr. Henderson." Mr. Henderson folded his magazine and stood up. He walked silently to the center of the room, exuding an air of authority that made Michael shrink even further. "Who are you?" Michael stammered. "I am Robert Henderson, Sarah Miller's legal counsel, and I am here to ensure you two get the new accommodations you deserve. Not in this luxurious house, but in a 6-by-9-foot cell." "A lawyer?" Eleanor struggled to her feet. Her legs were shaky, but her arrogant nature resurfaced as a defense mechanism. Do you think I'm scared? I have money. I can buy a more expensive lawyer. You have no physical proof. The ramblings of this lunatic won't hold up in court." "Physical proof?" I smiled wryly. I reached into the pocket of my dress, took out my phone, and pressed play on the recording I had prepared. I turned the volume all the way up. Michael's clear voice filled the room. "That's great. I mean, it's probably just a healing crisis, honey. Mom said that kind of reaction is normal." Then came Eleanor's cruel voice. "How did it go, Michael?" She ate it. "Good. It'll all be over soon. We can have a celebratory toast tonight." The recording stopped. Silence fell again, heavier than before. The faces of Michael and Eleanor were now masks of utter ruin. It was their voices, their undeniable confession that they knew about the poison and were celebrating it. "Is that not enough?" Mr. Henderson asked leisurely. He tossed a transparent plastic folder onto the lap of the still kneeling Michael. Inside the folder, the jar with the remaining red pudding and the toxicology analysis results were clearly visible, with an official letterhead stating, "Positive for arsenic trioxide, 200 milligrams, and warfarin, 50 milligrams, lethal dosage." Mr. Henderson read it aloud. "And on the second page is the fingerprint analysis taken from the pudding bowl. A 100% match to Eleanor's prints, which we lifted from a cup she left on the table before you left. And let's add the bottle of rat poison, brand name Final Meal, found in a locked drawer in the backyard shed." Leo added, "It had your fingerprints on it, Michael." The evidence rained down on them like hammer blows. There was no escape, no room for excuses. Suddenly, the unholy alliance between mother and son shattered. Michael, realizing his life was over, suddenly crawled toward me and grabbed my legs. He began to sob, his tears and snot staining my expensive dress. Sarah, please forgive me. I swear it wasn't my idea. It was all Mother's idea." "Really?" Michael pointed a trembling finger at his mother. "She forced me to do it. She bought the poison. She said she would cut me out of the will if I didn't comply. I'm just a victim, Sarah. I still love you. Please don't send your husband to jail, please." "You devilish child," Eleanor shrieked, unable to contain herself. She lunged forward and grabbed Michael by the hair. "You're the one with $2 million in gambling debts. You're the one who got that cheap tramp pregnant. You're the one who came crying to me, begging me to take care of your wife so you could get the insurance money. And now you're trying to throw me under the bus? You're the one who poisoned Father. You're the murderer!" Michael shot back, trying to pry his mother's hands off him. "You ungrateful son, you swindler, you thief." The scene before me was both pathetic and deeply satisfying. The two people who had been so united in their crime just yesterday, who had pretended to care for each other so much, were now tearing each other apart like cornered beasts, each one blaming the other, revealing even more of each other's dirty secrets that we hadn't known. "That's enough!" Detective Miller's baritone voice boomed like thunder, halting the sordid fight. Detective Miller emerged from his hiding place, followed by 4 burly police officers who immediately surrounded the room. Their guns were holstered, but their presence alone was enough to freeze Michael and Eleanor. "Michael Miller and Eleanor Miller," Detective Miller said officially, taking out a pair of shiny handcuffs. "I am Detective Miller of the Major Crimes Division. I am placing you both under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, domestic violence, document forgery, and embezzlement of assets." "No, no, officer, this is a misunderstanding," Eleanor babbled, backing away in terror as 2 officers approached her. She struggled, her matriarchal dignity crumbling in an instant. "I am a respected member of this community. Do you know who I am? Don't you dare touch me!" Click. The handcuffs snapped shut around Eleanor's wrist, which was adorned with gold bracelets. Michael, on the other hand, did not resist. He went limp as his hands were cuffed behind his back. He looked at me with puffy eyes, his gaze a disgusting plea. "Sarah, please, let's talk this out," he whimpered. I looked down at him coldly, without a shred of pity. "The talking is over, Michael. And the pudding? That was your final word. Enjoy your new life in prison." I hear they serve beans instead of dark berry pudding there. The police dragged them outside. Neighbors, curious about the parked police cars, had gathered at the gate. The flashes of their phone cameras went off. "Look, that's Mrs. Miller in handcuffs. Oh my God. And Mr. Miller, too. Were they on drugs? I heard they tried to poison his wife." The whispers of the neighbors were loud and clear. Eleanor tried to hide her now worthless face. Michael hung his head low. The reputation they had built over years of arrogance was shattered in an instant. I stood at the doorway with Leo and Mr. Henderson, watching as the police cars carried my dark past away. The fading wail of the sirens was the closing song to this tragic family drama. After the crowd dispersed and peace returned, Mr. Henderson gently patted my shoulder. "You did well, Sarah. And you, Leo," the old lawyer said, smiling proudly. Detective Miller also secured the recording of their argument just now. A perfect confession of guilt. They will never get out. Life in prison awaits them. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Without your help, we wouldn't have known what to do," I said sincerely. "My divorce filing will be submitted to the court tomorrow morning. With such strong criminal evidence, the judge will grant it quickly. You will be free, Sarah. And all your assets, this house, the land, the savings will be returned to you as part of the damages and asset division, since Michael's crime against his spouse is proven." Mr. Henderson said his goodbyes and left, leaving the 2 of us alone in the house that now felt vast and liberating. Night was falling. Stars began to appear in the clear sky, as if celebrating our freedom with us. I turned to Leo. He was looking at his wheelchair, still parked in the corner of the living room. He walked over to it and stroked it for a moment. Then, with one strong motion, he kicked it over. It crashed to the floor. "I won't be needing this anymore," Leo said with a smile. A genuine, free smile. The smile of a young man who had just gotten his life back. "You were incredible, Leo," I said, wiping away tears of overwhelming emotion that streamed down my cheeks. "If it weren't for you, I'd be in the ground right now." Leo came over and gave me a tight hug. It was the hug of a younger brother protecting his older sister. "You're the incredible one, Sarah. You survived in this hell for 3 years without losing your kind heart. Even though you were suffering yourself, you never stopped taking care of me. That's what gave me the strength to stand up." We broke the embrace. I looked into Leo's eyes. They resembled the eyes of his late father, the kind man he was before being corrupted by his mother's greed. But in Leo's eyes, I saw pure sincerity. "What now, Sarah?" Leo asked. "It's just the two of us in this big house, with no poison and no shouting." I took a long, deep breath, inhaling the fresh night air. It was sweet, sweeter than any pudding. I smiled brightly. "Now, we order the best fried chicken and eat until we burst. Tomorrow, we call a locksmith to change every lock in this house, throw out all of Eleanor's things, and start our new life." "I love that plan," Leo laughed. That night, the house that had once been a silent witness to our suffering echoed with cheerful laughter. Sarah, the wife who was deemed useless, and Leo, the brother-in-law who was considered mute and disabled, had flipped our destinies. We were not victims. We were victors. And from far away, I could feel the souls of my late parents and Leo's father smiling in peace. Justice had been served, and greed had been brought down by the truth itself.